1 square mile, its own police force, its own government, inside London, but not part of London. A medieval corporation older than Parliament itself, with powers written into Magna Carta that no Prime Minister can touch. This is the City of London, and it's not what you think. We think London is a city. It's not. It's two cities. Greater London, where 8 million people live, and the City of London, the square mile, where barely 9,000 people sleep, but where more money moves in a day than most countries see in a year. We think offshore tax havens are tropical islands run by corrupt governments. They are. But they're run from a square mile in central London, by men in medieval robes, under laws that predate democracy itself. By the end of this, you'll understand how the British Empire didn't die. It privatized, and you're watching its corporate heir count money it helped dictators steal. Let's start in 1956. Moscow. The Soviet Union has a problem. They're sitting on millions of US dollars from grain sales, and they're terrified. If they deposit those dollars in New York, the Americans could freeze them overnight. The Cold War is getting hot. So Soviet bankers make a phone call to London. Could a British bank hold US dollars outside America? The answer changes everything. A small London merchant bank called Midland starts accepting dollar deposits that never touch American soil. Dollars. In London. Outside US law. The Bank of England sees what's happening and makes a choice. They don't stop it. They encourage it. Because Britain just lost an empire, and the city needs a new business model. They call it the Eurodollar market. Here's how it works. You take US currency. You deposit it in a London bank. That bank can now lend those dollars to anyone, anywhere, without answering to the Federal Reserve. No reserve requirements. No US regulations. No oversight. It's American money, running on British infrastructure, governed by nobody. By 1963, the market is worth $3 billion. By the 1970s, it's hundreds of billions. The New York Times calls it the villain of every financial crisis. Because money that answers to no one is money that can do anything. But the Eurodollar market is just the engine. The real genius is the network. Picture the old British Empire, pink on the map, colonies, trading posts, far-flung islands administered from London. When that empire collapses, most colonies go independent. But some don't. Some stay connected to the Crown. Not part of the United Kingdom, but under it. Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands. They're called Crown Dependencies and overseas territories, and London just figured out what to do with them. In the 1960s and 70s, these islands start passing laws. Secrecy laws. No public registers of company owners. No requirements to report foreign income. Tax rates near zero. They're not writing these laws for their own citizens. They're renting out their sovereignty to anyone with money and a secret. Jersey is the model. 13 miles off the coast of France, 65 square miles, 100,000 people. And by the 1990s, it's holding more than £200 billion in offshore deposits. More wealth per capita than Switzerland. The island's government is run by a small circle of politicians and finance professionals who researchers describe as captured. Lawmakers whose loyalty is to offshore capital. Not voters. Here's the mechanism. You're a dictator. You've stolen $1 billion. You need to move it somewhere safe. Somewhere it can't be traced. Somewhere you can eventually reinvest it as clean capital. You call a lawyer in London. That lawyer sets up a company in Jersey. That company is owned by a trust in the British Virgin Islands. That trust is administered by a bank in the City of London. Your name appears nowhere. The money is invisible. But here's where it gets dark. That money doesn't stay offshore. It comes back into London property, mansions in Belgravia, penthouses in Knightsbridge, money laundered through Caribbean shell companies, buying bricks and mortar in England's capital. The National Crime Agency estimates that £90 billion of dirty money flows through the UK every year. Most of it ends up in London real estate. The city built the infrastructure. The islands provide the secrecy. London property is the endgame. Then the Soviet Union collapses. It's 1991. 70 years of communism evaporate overnight. State assets worth trillions are carved up in rigged auctions. A generation of oligarchs is born. They have billions. They have enemies. And they need somewhere to hide both. They choose London. By the 2000s, Eaton Square is called Red Square. Russian is the second most common language in Harrods. Oligarchs buy football clubs. They endow universities. They hire British PR firms to manage their reputations and British libel lawyers to silence their critics. England's libel laws, the most plaintiff-friendly in the world, become a weapon. If a journalist publishes something uncomfortable, the oligarch sues in London. The case bankrupts the publication. The story dies. They call it lawfare. And the City of London perfected it. But the oligarchs are just the most visible clients. The real money is quieter. African dictators, Latin American cartel bosses, Southeast Asian kleptocrats. They all use the same infrastructure. Shell companies in Jersey, accounts in the Caymans, real estate in London, legal representation from the square miles white shoe firms. A 2010 study by the Tax Justice Network identifies a pattern. Capital flight from developing countries flows through British-linked jurisdictions at rates far exceeding other offshore centers. The researchers estimate that Jersey alone facilitates the movement of billions in illicit capital annually. These aren't rogue actors. This is policy. The UK government handles the island's foreign affairs. London knows exactly what's happening, and London defends it, because the city's survival depends on it. Now here's the part that should terrify you. The City of London Corporation, the government of that 1 square mile, has a representative called the Remembrancer. This official sits in the House of Commons. Not as a member, as an observer. Their job is to monitor any legislation that might affect the city's interests and quietly lobby against it. No other private corporation has that access. The city does. Because its privileges are protected by Magna Carta. Because it predates democracy. Because it's not really part of Britain's government. It's a parallel government. For capital. And it gives votes to corporations. The city's elections allow companies, not just residents, to vote. The bigger the company, the more votes it gets. Goldman Sachs has votes. Deutsche Bank has votes. This isn't ancient history. This is the system today. In 2026, after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the UK sanctioned Russian oligarchs. Chelsea Football Club was seized. Mansions were frozen. Politicians gave speeches about the rule of law. But look closer. Jersey, Guernsey, and the Caymans agreed to share more information on shell company owners. Agreed. Not required. They're still negotiating. Balancing, as Jersey's officials put it, privacy and transparency. Translation: the machine is still running. It's just quieter now. The British Empire didn't end. It evolved. The gunboats and colonies became lawyers and offshore accounts. The East India Company became the City of London Corporation. The extraction didn't stop. It just went financial. Researchers call it the Second Empire, an empire of services, where Britain no longer rules the world, it serves it. It's the butler for every dictator, every oligarch, every corporation that needs to hide money or clean it. And the butler is very well paid. London is the world's leading exporter of financial services. The city processes more international banking transactions than New York. More than Tokyo, Jersey, Guernsey, the Caymans, and the British Virgin Islands combined hold more offshore wealth than Switzerland. And every penny flows through infrastructure the empire built and never dismantled. You can't sanction a network this diffuse. You can't regulate a system this old. The City of London predates the United Kingdom. Its rights are constitutional. Its power is structural. And its business model is making the untouchable unreachable. So when you hear about oligarchs or cartels, or corrupt politicians hiding money, ask yourself, where is that money? The answer is almost always the same. A shell company in a British territory. A trust in a Crown dependency. A townhouse in Chelsea. The empire's tools, refitted for the 21st century. The British Empire didn't die. It offshored itself. And you're still living in it.